Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another piano lesson with Warren. My name is Warren Macpherson. Thank you for joining me here today. As you can see, we're in a different space, different setup, and I'm here with my good buddy Adam Frederick on bass.
Hi, everyone.
And I just wanted to shoot this tutorial to talk about playing with a bass player. If you're playing, you don't have a drummer, you don't have a guitarist, what is it that you and the bass player can do to make it still sound fun, interesting, tempo going, and grooving? So I invited Adam here in the studio to talk about his perspective as a bassist. What is it that he looks for when playing with a keyboard player? And then I'll try to share my input on what is it that I listen for and look for when playing with a bassist. So my buddy here, Adam, we've known each other for about 6-7 years now?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And we met because I think he reached out to me on Facebook like 7 years ago. He was playing with this trio, funk rock band, and they were looking to upgrade to a keyboard player. And I had just moved to Maine from Jamaica. I've only been in Maine probably about 2 years at that time. And I got this random Facebook message from this guy saying, hey, hear that you're new to town and possibly looking for some keyboard gigs. So I went downtown, checked them out playing, and this guy was just shredding on the bass, as a trio. He was holding down not only the harmonic qualities of a keyboard player, but also the low end as a bass player. So here we are, fast forward 7 years later, and we've been playing together in various projects. So when the idea came to me to do a tutorial on piano with bass, obviously he's my first choice. So welcome, Mr. Fredericks.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's just jump right into it. How long have you been playing bass, by the way?
27 years this year. Yeah.
27 years as a bassist.
As a bassist. I started on violin and moved to piano, and it was pretty clear to everybody involved that it was my time was best spent producing one note at a time as opposed to as many as possible, 10 or more. So My piano teacher was also a bass player. She had an upright bass sitting in the corner of her room, and while I was trying to work on piano stuff, I would just be ogling over this beautiful upright bass, and so that was it. She sort of keyed into the fact that I wanted to play bass. She asked me if I wanted to play bass. Let me play her electric bass, and that was it. My parents had one in my hands within a couple months, and I haven't really done a heck of a lot else. Bass was the one for me, for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're doing pretty good with that instrument. So, who are some of your influences?
Well, it's changed over the years. I started off being into people like Flea and Victor Wooten really early. Victor, obviously is the man, and I think every young bass player, particularly of my generation, really saw him as somebody quite special. Mm-hmm. And he continues to be one of the foremost educators and players on the planet. He's a real treasure.
Yeah.
But
great.
But from then I got into Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters era. So his bass player Paul Jackson was just about the grooviest thing I had ever heard, man. He was, it wasn't about flash. He never really took you out of the fabric of the music, but there was so much going on, and all this these superimposed harmonies and trills and flourishes that sort of were woven right in, but never really imposed on anybody else. So he was a big influence on my playing. And then I got more into Jaco. I ended up transcribing a bunch of Jaco Pastorius stuff. And then when I got into college, it was more about upright players at that point. So a lot of Charles Mingus and Ray Brown. Those were sort of my dudes in college.
And you primarily studied jazz bass in college, right?
Yeah. I had to do, the jazz program is interesting because you have to do all of the classical work that the classical players are playing, and you have to do all this jazz work. So you got to learn all the heads, and you got to memorize all the changes, and you have to be able to improvise reasonably well. And so that was a really intense musical period of my life. Just sort of diving in and being able to focus on the instrument and really understand what was happening.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk now about when you're playing in small scale fashion, like with keyboard players. What are some of the things you look for? So bullet points. What are some of the do's and don'ts, you can say, that you listen for when playing with a keyboard player?
So playing with a keyboard player is a really unique challenge for a bass player. It's not like playing with a guitarist. A guitarist occupies a lot of the upper structure, sort of middle and upper structure sounds. So we don't really cross paths very often, unless I'm soloing or something like that. With a keyboard player, we can occupy the same register. You have all this low end on the piano. So the challenge there is making sure that you're playing with somebody who knows how to listen. That's the biggest thing with any instrument, I think, is being able to listen to what's happening and respond appropriately.
So when you're saying listen, you're talking about the bass player needs to be listening or the keyboard player needs to be listening?
I'm saying anybody who's participating musically in that moment needs to be listening. That is the primary focus
So for
of
the
the musician.
up-and-comers, beginners, intermediate,
Yeah.
what should they be listening for?
You should be listening for shape and maybe texture of what's happening with the music. So if there's a lot of notes going on, you can do one of two things. And in a very simple way, you can stay out of the way and play just whole notes and let all that happen, or you can contribute to chaos by playing a bunch of notes as well. And it's really knowing what's appropriate in the moment and what you're trying to express musically, or I think music and emotions share a lot. So for me it becomes like what is the emotion you're trying to express here? What are we trying to state with the music? So the bass player, primary job of the bass player is to provide the bridge between harmony and rhythm.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that your time is first and foremost. You got to have good time. So putting the notes in the right places, and then what notes they are is secondary to that. You can play almost any note and make it work if you understand how notes work.
As long as it's diatonic to the chord.
Right. Yeah. But that also has a lot of flexibility to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll for beginners, I would say that the biggest thing is
Focus
play
on the rhythm.
on the rhythm.
Keep the time.
Yep. And
play
make
the
sure
right
that the notes that you're choosing are appropriate.
Which is most of the time would be just like a root note of the chord.
Yep. So starting off for almost any bass player, what you're going to see is roots, the 5, root an octave above. Those are, you start there, and then thirds and sevenths become important, and then sort of knowing everything that's around those and how to move into them and out of them. But for a general, like we're just playing bass here as a supportive role, it's root 5, 3, 7.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So from my perspective, some of the things that I look for and that the freedom that it gives me when I'm playing with a bass player is, one, I can sort of leave a lot of the time-related stuff to the bassist. He keeps the 1 and the 3, bum, 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 and that gives me flexibility to not have to play on some of those beats if I don't want to. The other important thing is you don't have to play the root of the chord a lot of the time because the bass man has that. So in the song we're playing, some of the time, like if I go to do the 5 chord, I might do something like that. And he's playing just the C, and we still have that nice C9 chord, but I don't have to worry about the C. And especially when I'm soloing, let's play 1625 in the key of F. And we're just going to do something like a 1, 6, 2, 5. So then I can do something like so I'm not playing any of the roots of the chord. Again. So that's one of the freedom that it gives us, keyboard player. Once we have the basis, we can almost forget about the root of the chord, knowing that they'll be taking care of that. And then that helps us to do more improvisatory lines with the right hand. And he's keeping the rhythm. So when we're playing with bass player also, I oftentimes avoid this section of the piano. This registers where they live. And if I do go down there, it would be one of two things. If the bass player decides to go up in the sort of more low mids, then I can even go down. Like, for example, if he's doing a solo, then I can sort of temporarily take over his role. For example, let's go back to that 1625 progression.
Right.
And you're going to be doing more solo, and we'll sort of hold down the low end.
All
3,
right.
4. to what Adam talks about when you say you have to listen to what's going on in a moment. So once he jumped to a more improvisatory role, then I can move down to the bass territory because he's not functioning as a bass player at that point, but like a solo improvisatory instrument. So then I can go down, And then other times, if I do go down there, I'm listening for specific what we call pockets that he's avoiding, and then I might fill those pockets with a little bit more bass note. So let's go back to I Fly Away, and I'll probably demonstrate some of that. 1, 2, 3. So there you go. That's it. So as you can see, I'm still using all the real estate of the piano, but I'm picking and choosing. I'm not living in the low end constantly. I'm just touching and going. When he's not there, I go there. When he's back, I'm not. And sometimes even when he's there, if he's doing sort of like a walk-up linear moment, I might double him. I might hear that he's doing that. I might doubling with him. And so all of those things are important. So the goal that I want you to take away from this video is that you have to listen. There's no you have to do this all the time or that all the time. It's a constant breathing, living organism that's, music. And things change based on the song, based on the key, based on the register, whether or not there's a singer, and so you constantly listen and you react to what you're hearing, both intelligently and musically, and also emotionally. All right, guys, so that's what we have for you today on Playing with a Bassist. Hopefully this was very informative, gives you some ideas, and I know I have some bass players out there who are watching and probably wanting more of this. So what I want you to do, if you're a bass player seeing this, comment in the section if this is something you'd like to see more of, if you'd like to potentially probably do some work with Adam. He's a very dialed with musical theory and harmony and how you can incorporate all of that on bass. So while the predominant role of a bass player is to play single notes, as you can see, guys like Mr. Frederick here have opened up the possibility that you can do more than just that. You can play the bass as a rhythmic instrument, a melodic instrument, a harmonic instrument. So if you'd want to know more about that stuff, comment in the section and we can possibly put together some videos along that line. Adam Fredericks also do some performance with his wife, who is a phenomenal vocalist. And if you'd like to check out some of their work, Adam's going to tell you more about that.
So I excuse me. Along with playing with Warren and a few groups and a bunch of other groups around here, my wife has a quintet. Beautiful music, beautiful woman. You can find her stuff at katiematzel.com, KatieMatzell.com. She's also on Spotify. You can hear her EP there. We travel quite a bit around the country. We have plans to hit Europe in the summer of next year. So anybody from those areas, please sign up on her website. If you want, as Warren said, if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to comment on this page, and he'll put us in touch. But I'd love to hear from any of you. I'm happy to help any beginning or intermediate bass players, anybody who just wants to talk about bass and how to play with people, and that's play with a capital P. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to talk to you. So thank you, Warren, for having me.
And thank you for taking time out of your day to join me here and talk more about music and playing. It's a pleasure. So thank you for that.
Likewise, yeah, thank you.
All right, gang. So that's it. There you go. That's Adam Frederick right there. Go check out his stuff that him and his wife have going on. I was fortunate to do a concert with them about a week ago in a theater, and it's some pretty impressive stuff. So go take a listen. You'll learn a lot about just shifting time signatures and modal mixture, how they use modern funk jazz compositions to create beautiful songs using all those concepts. So go check that out. Until then, keep listening, keep singing, and keep practicing. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell so you're notified when I upload new video content, which is going to be every Wednesday at 6 p.m. All right? So until then, take care, and I'll catch you in the next tutorial.